The song is called Parallel Paradox.
Yeah, you ready? Yeah!
away on tour, so, we really need to sell.
I said, something's wrong here, something's really wrong, can't have happened, and we fight. We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. As this enormous crowd shows, we have truth and justice on our side. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania. And we're going to the Capitol. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, we're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. We will never give up. We will never concede. We can take that place. And then do what? Take on fight.
Well, hey there. How's everybody doing today? It's me, your old pal, Big Ugly Jim. This is, you'll notice in the title, it's called Yammering with the Masses XL. It doesn't mean that this is an extra large. It means that this is our 40th episode of me doing this every Saturday. So that's kind of cool. I'm kind of stoked about that. 40 episodes, zero growth, which is okay. But 40 episodes. It has been just a little bit over a year since I started streaming, and it has been a whole bunch of fun. I kid about no growth or whatever. It's really not a thing I care about, largely because I have a day job. I just do this because it's fun. I do this because I enjoy talking about stuff. And during COVID, we didn't get the one-on-one conversation stuff. We didn't get to go hang out with friends and have a beer and talk about what was going on in the world or what was going on in our heads. So this was a way for me to kind of do that. Will it continue now that Joe Biden has single-handedly defeated COVID like the Chad monster that he is? Probably. I'm probably going to keep doing it. But who knows? Who knows? Like I say, I'm not motivated to make money here. I'm not motivated to become the next Hassan or anything like that. I'm just having fun. Just saying my things. Speaking my truth. That's what the wine moms would say, right? I'm not a wine mom. I'm a coffee and beer dad. And we will have both of those today because goddamn well feel like it. I am being assaulted on all sides by allergies right now. This is a unique time for people who are not Calgarians and are suffering from what they call winter. Calgary winters are brutal. They can be absolutely awful. And we had a really, really long stretch of shitty cold with wind, which is very uncommon for us. But all of a sudden, we hit a Chinook. And the Chinook has meant that it has been gorgeous out. If I look right now, I can tell you the current temperature is 4 above Celsius, which is, like 1,000,000 Fahrenheit or something. I don't fucking know. Get a real system. But yeah, 4 above in the middle of February is pretty goddamn nice. Oh, speaking of middle of February, yeah, it's like 2 days till Valentine's Day. Let me just take a moment to say a special hello to my special Valentine. Hey, baby. Yeah, this is okay though. I'm good at what I do. So yeah, we're gonna do our usual thing where we talk about stuff, and then eventually I will call it a wrap and do a couple of sweet karaoke songs, probably quite horribly, and we'll go from there. If you're curious on whether or not this video will be monetized, it will not be. I'm fairly certain that nothing I do on YouTube will ever be monetized except for band projects. And even then, who knows? Like the video we played immediately before the stream, Sons of Sedition, probably would never get monetized if we were a huge band because politics, the only politics that gets monetized is like Ben Shapiro and shit like that. But again, not my thing. I do have a Patreon, but I have no patrons, so like it's there for in case I ever did need it, but I don't. And I'm kind of okay with being like the little loser guy no one knows about, this weird old Gen X man yelling at his computer. I'm pretty okay with that. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. But subscribe, follow, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitch, because yeah, I'm huge in Austria. No, I'm not. All right. As you can tell by my ridiculous hair, I am an aging punk. And the first thing I felt like I would talk about today, while the millions and millions of viewers slowly file into the auditorium, is something that I was watching a video today, and I don't know if it was new or not. Vosh was going over a video by Short Fat Otaku, I think, where he was talking about that shitty song about how Scott Pilgrim ruined women, whatever, and it's like the incel anthem, go team, can't get laid, and Vosh started talking about how, because the guy had made a comment about it being sort of a modern day punk rock song or something to that effect. Vosh started talking about, punk rock is left. I think of punk rock as very left, but I'm wrong. It's important to understand that. The community that I helped to build and the community that I've been a huge supporter of for a very long time has tried very hard to be inclusive and welcoming and very much geared towards the so I see, like, inside everyone there are two punks. One who rails against everything no matter what, and one who lifts you up in the pit. I've always tried to be the one that lifts you up in the pit. Don't get me wrong, I rail against a lot of shit. It's kind of who I am and what I do. But at the end of the day, I am guided by my value system, which is, my morality. So if I see someone is hurting, I do my best to help, to alleviate that hurt. And I am very much a left-wing punk. I got into punk much later than most, and I got into it because of people like Jello Biafra, who were talking really interesting leftist perspectives. I wrote punk off when I was a kid, because I'm old enough to have been around for like early punk. Hey, I am Canadian. How you doing, my friend? Anti-authoritarian, anti-government, much like our friends at the RNC. Yes, exactly. They're such totally anti-government, anti-establishment. And we'll get there. I am old enough to have essentially been around. I was too young to be an early punk, but it was in my universe. My sister's best friend, Colleen, had an older sister named Corrine, and Corrine was a punk, and they lived 2 doors down from me. So it's not like this is some random, like, I knew them. I used to go to their house when I locked myself out, because in my age group, you actually got a key at the age of like 5. We were latchkey kids, and if you forgot your key, you would go to some neighbor's house that you trusted. So that's what, that family were very close to me and to my sister. And Corrine was a punk, and my young kid brain looked at her and her friends, and all they were drunk, stoned, vomit ever. They used to refer to things called acid vomit parties, where everyone would take acid and vomit. I don't know if that's even a real thing, or if it was just like what good Christian folks would describe. Oh, they're going to another one of those satanic acid vomit parties. My childhood was full of that shit, so who knows if that was a fair take. But I wrote that entire style of music off because these people just seemed like idiots, and seemed like they were motivated by being people that I didn't want to be. And it wasn't until far later than most that I found out that I was wrong about punk rock. And I embraced punk rock, and I have loved it and been nurtured in its silky bosom ever since. Thank you, punk rock. Here's to you. But not all punks are left-wing punks. Notable example would be the Misfits, and certainly not alone in that. I think Fear was very right-wing, and there's a bunch of sort of big-name punk bands that people are like, they're right-wing. But yeah, like the Misfits, Michael Graves posted a thing about being a proud Western chauvinist and doing one of these, if I'm not mistaken, right? I mean, that's not very left-leaning. And a lot of punks were like, that's crazy. You can't be a punk rocker and be right-wing. And yeah, you can. They always were right-wing people. This is that thing where we have shared interests and some stuff that we support together and some stuff that we don't. Libertarian values, obviously, the anti-government stance, as mentioned by I Am Canadian, is a big part of punk rock. Absolutely. But it's not like the only part where people are like, oh, I am anti-government, therefore I'm punk rock. And being anti-government can present in different ways. We see that in convoys today, as an example. I am anti-authoritarian in the sense that I will guide my life by my morality. I will do what I think to be morally right based on my moral compass, and I will do the things that I think are important, whether the government allows me to, or prevents me to, or doesn't care. So, the example of the seatbelt. I believe that the good of wearing a seatbelt far outweighs the bad of my freedoms. So I will wear a seatbelt. If the government got rid of their seatbelt ban, I would still wear a seatbelt. That doesn't mean I'm perfect. I smoke. Smoking may not be a morally positive net end result for me. It's probably not going to be. So I'm not pretending to be some unleash the virtue signal. Quitting. It's not like that. But this is what I try to do, and this is who I am. But it's wrong to think that punk was never a vehicle for right wing. In my city, there were punk skinheads, the Nazi variety of skinheads I'm referring to now, who tried to interfere with that scene and get involved in it. And they were met with punches to the mouth. This is what you need to do, in my opinion, when you encounter white supremacists. Now, that's a good thing. And they were kept out of that music scene. And less so in the metal community, though the metal community here in Calgary is, again, largely very non-Nazi and non-shitty, but there are people who made their way into that world. And this is true everywhere. So the question really becomes, do you in your scene allow this to happen? And a lot of the times when it does, it's simply that the people who are there may not be strong enough to stop it. If you're in a small town or whatever, and you've got you and your 6 buddies totally love you some bad religion, and you start to build a community, and these fucking, dude bros who you don't like start showing up, and they're white supremacists, can you fight them off? Probably not. You do other things, you try, but, you may be screwed there. But right-wing values are not anti-punk. I think at the core of punk they are. But there's certainly, from the get-go, there's been right-wing punks. And it's funny because this whole world that we live in right now is just highlighting how little people understand about what means these things like right and left and communism and fascism and all that other stuff. That's hilarious to me because, to me, these are very, very clear, very defined, very understandable. But a lot of people are just, they don't understand. They think of, I'm a libertarian, so therefore, and I am a libertarian because I'm a libertarian socialist. That does not mean that me and libertarian conservatives are going to get along. I do have some libertarian conservative friends, but it's not very common because a lot of them have really shitty takes. And their libertarian stance often is liberty for me and not for thee. Where was I going with that? The punk scene. When all this COVID wackiness began, and in the time leading up before that with the rise of the trumpeting, I started seeing, and it was funny because it's not just punk rock. I remember seeing Public Enemy. Somebody was commenting when did Public Enemy become a political band? I saw Reagan Youth and the Dead Kennedys getting a lot of their fans commenting and being like, when did the Dead Kennedys become shills for the government? Because they were like, hey, maybe you should get vaccinated because that's a good thing. And to me, that's not shilling for the government. I've said it a million times. I am doubly vaxxed and boosted, and I chose to do so not because of the government telling me to. I chose to do so because, in my opinion, it was the most good that I could do in that particular circumstance. Yeah, Johnny Rotten, I don't really know where Johnny Rotten sits. I keep seeing that he's a pro-Trump guy, and then I see him say that he's not, but then I see him do I feel like he's probably a lost cause. And I don't think the Sex Pistols, even back in the day, like they were a punk band, and I will never take that away from them. But I think that they were more the look and feel of punk rather than the humanity of punk. Hey, I got HLW Drums is now following. Hello, HLW Drums. Welcome. Punk band versus punk mentality. Yeah, exactly. The ethos versus the music. And yeah, I've never really felt like the Sex Pistols were, they talked about anarchy, but they were just assholes. They were the kinds of punks that I looked at and wrote off punk music as a result. And it's worth noting that I don't know where Johnny Rotten sits on the whole right wing left wing thing, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if he was a right wing chud, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if at this point anyone doing anything is just not a shock to me. There's just been so much water under the bridge in the last few years of people blowing my mind with their ridiculous takes. That okay, yeah, Johnny Rotten could be like, I was always a white nationalist, and I'd be like, okay, maybe. That's not true. I would have difficulty believing that, but you know what I'm saying. One of the things that I think as punks that we do that is a disservice to ourselves is we think of our scenes as being above fascists or above whatever evil thing, Trumpers or whatever. And then it shows up, because inevitably it shows up. And then we have no idea what we're going to do about it. Because the only way we ever dealt with this shit in the past was by punching people. And we're all old now. Punk's not dead, but it ain't moving quick. That's not entirely true. There's plenty of young punks, but the don't give a fuck personified, don't give a funk, personified in the media for a long time versus community or tribe. Yeah, I hate the word tribe, honestly, just because it feels really like you're bumping up against words that have very important meanings that I don't want a bunch of punks to take away from. But yeah, the punk community and the it really and like in Calgary, I can say that it's not even a community; it's a series of communities that kind of interact a little bit. Like there are plenty of people who are in the punk world that I don't know, I've never met, and who there's a lot of them that hate me. A lot of them think I'm a white supremacist, which is amazing. But you can't win all your battles, so I just smile and go, okay, you can believe whatever the fuck you want on this one. I guess, living an authentic life of not being a white supremacist, that's probably just a psyop. That's what I do. Anyways, my point is this whole COVID thing and the trumpeting and the rise of the accelerationist movement and all of this kind of stuff, if it's taught us anything, it has taught us that there are bad ideas everywhere. And this was always the case. And hopefully what we do as whether it's musicians or as people or as friends or as whatever the fuck we are, hopefully what we do is we lead by example. I swear to fuck, I just saw something like flicker over there. It's no fire and I don't see any like rats or anything, so we're good. I'm in the basement, so you never know. Not that I have rats. It's Alberta. Alberta doesn't have rats. We kill them. Anyways, that's kind of the whole thing I wanted to say on the subject of the punk. Tansy Sugar, how are you, my dear? It's good to see you. This coffee, dedicated to you. It's definitely the thing that I recognize that we forget. The whole idea that we create these insular communities and we feel like everyone is of a like mind, and that's really problematic because a lot of the time when people who I remember, I think it was Carlin who wrote a piece for Absolute Underground, if I'm remembering correctly, and it was about how the community didn't welcome him very much. The music community in general didn't welcome him. When they would walk into rooms, they felt very othered. Carlin, for the record, for those that don't know him that are watching, is an Indigenous fella who's a buddy of mine, a brilliant drummer in bands like Iron Tusk and No More Moments. So No, is he in No More Moments? Yeah, he's in No More Moments. I get so confused. I'm old. But yeah, he's a fantastic human being and a true hero of mine, honestly. And when I read that, I did the hashtag not all white folk thing, and was not outwardly, but I was like, what? No, like we totally. And then I remembered that I am not the punk community. I am a tiny little piece of the punk community. When Carlin walks in the room, the minute I see that motherfucker, I'm hugging the shit out of him because I love him, and I have been very, very happy to have him in my universe. But I guarantee you that that's not always the case, and we get the point being that this insular mentality convinces us that we have a community that doesn't have all the criteria that we may think it does. We are individual, respect our individualness. Yes, and it's good that groups are not a Borg, that we have different disparate ideas, but we have to be prepared to challenge those ideas. And this happens all the time in every group. You find out that someone has some very fashy leanings or some like wrong towards women kind of leanings or whatever, and a lot of the people in the group go, oh no, that he can't do that. He's you've known him for a long time. He's not like that. And a lot of the time, yeah, they are. And we don't see it because we don't want to see it, because it's comfortable here in our stupid bubble. It's comfortable not challenging these things and just assuming the best of the people that are in our lives. I get that, but it ain't okay, and we need to do better. Anyways, right-wing punk stuff, that covers it. All right, let's start talking about the convoy, because as much as I don't want to give attention to the convoy, it's a thing. So what have we seen in the last week, since last week when I was talking about this? Well, I feel really good about this Facebook comment I made earlier today, and I'm going to share it with you. One of the convoy people shared a tweet, and it was like, oh my god, like the cops are here and they're lining up snipers on the tops of buildings, which I understand is actually the case. And I also understand is kind of expected, because they have been like hunkering down and digging in, and it is very, very strongly suspected that they have large-scale weapons, and some of them are like ex-military dudes and all this kind of shit. So like, cops aren't going to fuck around on this one. They've given them their moment in the honking sun to honk honk. Oh, and what does HH honk honk mean? Oh, I don't know. Could it be something about a dead German leader? I don't know. HH? Whatever. I'm probably wrong on that, right? But, so this dude shares like, oh my god, snipers! And someone I know shared this and was like, there has to be something between go home and snipers on the roof. And so I commented, and I was like, yeah, it's called going home. Because it's frustrating. It's frustrating to me. We are seeing now the memorandum of understanding, which we've been using children as human shields. That's another one that that's a new low they've been stooping to, having children, like they're really encouraging the children to come and just stand right in the front, because that's what the mensch do. Fucking posers. Another one that we saw was the slow roll. The Flim Flam man on his Flim Flam live stream was going yuck yuck, or I don't know if it was on his live stream or on Zello or whatever the fuck. But he was talking about, wouldn't it be funny if we slow rolled some schools? If you're not familiar, slow rolling is when you drive really slow, and in their case, like, honk your horn a lot. And it's an intimidation tactic. It's a fear tactic, right? I mean, they use it in movies all the time. You see, like, someone's in a building and they look out and there's the car that's just slowly driving, and the driver's leaning out his window like, I sees you. That Pat King was like, wouldn't that be funny if we did that to schools in Ottawa? So someone did, because of course they did. My phone just decided I was trying to search Google or some shit. I don't fucking know. Anyways, So literally, someone was driving super slow around an elementary school, revving their engine and glaring at the children and the parents inside, because that's an example of good people on either side, isn't it? I understand that they're now out of that. There was this baseball diamond overflow parking lot, if I understand correctly, and the cops have been like, why don't y'all just, use that space to do the things you need to do? And they were like, that's a great idea, officer. And they literally like parked trucks back to back and put like bales of hay and wood up, and like you can't see in, and there's a reception tent that as you approach, like people will walk up and be like, what can I do for you, sir? You're not allowed to come in here. That's not suspect at all. Nothing to see here, lads. They don't believe that the cops will actually act on them. The privilege makes them think rubber bullets, water cannons, CFS, etc. Can't touch them. I think some of them are starting to get the point. I guess cops were showing up yesterday. There was that injunction that got passed that said, honk your horn and you're going to go to jail. And there was another one that's like, you will disperse. This is a state of emergency now. You will disperse by 7 p.m. or we'll start ticketing. And by midnight, we'll start impounding vehicles and arresting people. And I think some of them are going to figure that out. But I think the thing is that they feel like they have such numbers and such coordination and such, all this other stuff. And they've got like I said, ex-military dudes who are encouraging them to do things like outside of the main area to draw police attention away and all this shit. Like they feel like they're chess masters on this thing. And yeah, they feel powerful. And and they also, I think, believe, probably not wrongly, that the police are on their side. And I don't think that's wrong. Police are class traitors just like fascists. And so they feel like they probably won't have any ramifications and that this is just a thing that they have to get through. But I think there's that other contingent that are like, whew, I'm going to go home now. This is getting more than I can handle. So I do think that there will be a large number of problems. I'm not expecting the Ontario Police Department or whatever to be the ones that deal with it. I'm actually thinking it's going to wind up being probably a larger like RCMP or possibly even military. I don't know. It's probably not the military, but you know what I mean. Like depending on how hunkered in these people are and what access to things they have, it's going to be ugly. They're really pushing it. This is the thing. They are accelerationists. The idea is you push and push and push and push, and eventually the system will break. And whether it breaks in your favor or against your favor, if you're an accelerationist at your core, it doesn't matter because you've just accelerated things to the breaking point, and fuck yeah. It's like trolling, but in your brain. It's fucking ridiculous. I hope they lose their licenses. Instead of stuck in a truck cab for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, barely making ends meet because of the Trudeau and the government. And the thing that is weird about that is, like, truckers make good money. It's not great money. It's not like the best money on earth, but like it's a middle class income. Appeal to the frustrated middle class much, white nationalists? But they're the people who I don't know that they're truckers that are actually there. Like they're people who own trucks, but do they own trucks because they're like the owners of a trucking company? Do they own trucks because they're individuals who own a small? Like it's hard to know. My whole thing about this from the get-go, as a workers' movement, is that this has always really not sat well with me because it's not a workers' movement. They're not defending for Health and Safety Act changes. They're not doing anything. They're just saying you can't fire freedom, baby, and like fuck that hard all the way in its nose. But yeah, complaining and I'm sitting in my truck for days on end without getting paid because Justin Trudeau. All right, look at you, fella. They just want to tilt Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I'm a tilter. I tilt at windmills. That's part of what makes me a rhombus. I tilt at windmills. I get that. But I choose windmills that, you know, are morally right. There will be some naive believers who will be hurt by this in that crew, no different than the religious sheep. Yeah, yeah, that's facts. You know, there are people who are buying this hook, line, and sinker, who really feel that they are standing up for freedom. There are people who really believe that they are those pre-Holocaust Jews because they've just suckled so deeply on that QAnon teat, and they just can't imagine what the really real world is. And they've got this victim narrative, this obsession with a plot. Wonder where we heard about that one. They've got this obsession with a plot that they're just stuck in. And it'll get worse before it gets better. That's all I'm saying. I will relish the day the organizers are arrested. Yep. I want to see that happen. I also find it really funny. Speaking of organizers, and I'm talking about Tamara Lich or whatever her fucking name is, that monster fascist but horrible in every other way as well person. So America, not very thrilled about this. Not thrilled at all one bit about this happening and fucking with the supply chain. America is very not okay with this. And what is Tamara Lich's other thing that she does? Oh yeah, the political party where she wants to take the worst people in Canada from this convoy perspective, separate from Canada, and join the United States. I don't know that the United States is so keen on that, Tamara. I think they're pretty pissed at you, Tamara. Rhombus are us, yes, rhombus. Bow to none and rhombus on. Well, yeah, you're bowing. Psh. That's just silly talk. Us rhombuses don't bow. We just rom. What else has been the deal there? Oh, so they got rid of their memorandum of understanding. The one that was like, hey, we would like to abolish the parliament and just have the appointed bodies and also will be the other branch of government. Please sign here when you are willing to accept our terms and conditions. They realized that the optics of that was not so good, and so they've removed it. After it got over 350,000 signatures or something like this, like, they're not going to pursue. And they're doing the like, well, we're not lawyers. We don't know how to lawyers speak. When I said abolish the government and implant me and my friends, I meant democratically, obviously. Yeah, that's a thing that's happening. Is the memorandum of understanding has I think they've completely revoked it, which is a shame because I was looking forward to this brand new fascist dictatorship led by truckers, the governor general, and appointed senators. I feel like that's going to get a lot of things done. It's all going communist, even though not a single Communist Party member was elected last election. This is true, Jay. And here's the thing. This is my whole point. Is no one seems to understand what these words mean anymore. I have seen so many people share this. You know what's worse than a little bit of honking? Communism. And I'm like, no. First off, I am a socialist. I am not a communist. They are different. It is perhaps semantic. It's perhaps me saying, like, I'm not power metal. I'm stoner prog metal. But those differences are important. I don't support the idea of the communist state, at least in the Marxist-Leninist perspective. I'm not that guy. That said, terrorizing people is not good no matter who does it. And when we talk about a little bit of honking, what are we really talking about? We're talking about day and night, horns blaring, really fucking loud, to the point where they've, like, smuggled in horns from, like, cruise ships and shit. Like, this is sonic warfare. This is the shit that we did to David Koresh. The CIA, lined the place and just pumped, like, loud noises and animals screaming into this is the exact same psyop shit that they do for these things. It's not a little bit of honking. This is horrible. To live in Ottawa right now would be so fucking bad. If you were, like, super neurotypical and, like, completely well balanced, you would be ready to fucking snap. Imagine what it's like for the people who are suffering from anxiety, from depression, from fear, from all, like, this is a terrible thing, and fuck that, versus communism, which communism isn't you have to get a vaccine to cross the border. This is the thing, is they don't even, and they get confronted about this all the time, the whole question of like, dude, what freedom are you losing? And they're like, well, I can't work. Well, yes, you can work. In fact, truckers can continue to work as truckers. That's not a thing that will stop. Even if you don't get vaccinated, you can continue to be a full-time professional trucker. You can't cross the border. That's the only thing. But you can truck all the way across the country from sea to fucking sea. No problem. You just can't cross the border. The estimate is that 90% of all truckers apparently are vaccinated. 80% of the truckers that cross the border are already vaccinated. So we're talking about like, fine. That's not a workers' movement. Why would the U.S. want to join them when they get they get us at 68 cents on the dollar as exploited northern neighbors? Yeah, absolutely. She doesn't clearly doesn't understand the economics. Yeah, Tamara's not. She's not a Swiftie. Watching them go up on train charges would have been, or treason. Yeah, treason charges would have been nice. I don't see that happening. I call it Red Scare 3, McCarthy's Revenge. Dun dun dun. And this is like my video that I did on fascism the other day. I was talking about, like, you know, Umberto Eco talks about fascism, and he talks about the fear of difference, and that the difference is typically, you know, racial stereotyping. And I absolutely agree that racial stereotyping is often a sign of fascism, but fascism doesn't need racial differences. It can use other kinds of differences. So the Red Scare was very much like that. The fear of communism, and the fear that atheists and homosexuals would be coerced by communists, even if they didn't follow communism. But the shame of being a queer would be enough for them to be turned against the state and used by their communist overlords. Ooh. You know, that shit, that mentality, and they're using the same, you know, degeneracy, and they're using the fuck, what is that? All of the you know, postmodernist talking points, that cultural Marxism and all that shit. Like, those are all ways to just basically say people who are ideologically opposed to me are dangerous threats who need to be stamped out, rooted out, and killed. And guess what? As one of those dangerous threats, because I don't agree that fascism is sweet, apparently we're on the chopping block. So I'm not standing by. Not happening. Pierre Poilievre is sure milking this by standing by the truckers Trump style. Prick. Oh, yes. I haven't actually been watching the news involving him a whole lot, because all of this is just, it's more than I can sort of stomach. But the whole thing, the whole game right now, the comment that was it Candace Bergen or whatever, I don't even know her name, the interim president of the CPC, was like, you know, we need to extend an olive branch. Do we? I keep using the words Sudetenland and Alsace-Lorraine, and maybe people aren't picking this up, but appeasement has not historically been a big win. So let's not do the appeasement. Right? These are a fraction of a percentage of people exposing themselves as fascists and being actively fascing. No, there's no need for an olive branch. That said, I did see a really good article or post by Beau of the Fifth Column, where he was like, you know what? Canada government is actually doing the right thing here. And I was like, wait, what? And then I listened, and he was talking about, like, if they come in, and they come in hard, early on. I see Torpid Logic. Hello, Torpid Logic. Welcome to the stream. Hopefully you enjoy the shit out of this. What was I saying? Shit, my brain. I got distracted by a shiny thing or a zombie, one or the other. Fuck, where was I going? LinkedIn, not a professional network anymore, but political social shithole. I am not surprised. I don't care about LinkedIn, but I have avoided looking at it for a long time because a lot of the right-wing folks are on there, and a lot of the people on there are right-wing folks, and I can just imagine them thinking it's another fucking echo chamber for them. I remember what I was talking about, the Candace Bergen or whatever. It was like, the extent, the Sudetenland and all that stuff. Yeah. Anyways, I think I made that point. LinkedIn of all places has gone Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right wing fuck. This does not surprise me. This is the thing, is like when you work in business and some kind of lefty righty kind of thing happens. I work in oil companies and stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of like really, really the like super Christian right or the libertarian right or the whatever that are in those spaces and that just don't understand. Like, I'll give you an example. I used to work once upon a time for this company called Encana. And it's important that I say Encana simply because the guy who was the CEO of the company is the one I'm talking about. A true Canadian right-wing monster named Gwyn Morgan. Now, Gwyn decided that this was during the G8 summit, and there was the various protests that were happening, and we were in the time leading up to the G8 summit in Calgary. Gwyn sent an email out, and normally whenever, Gwyn's got a corporate communications team, so he gives them the thing, and they X a lot of it out, and they remove all the bad words and all that kind of stuff. But in this particular occasion, you could tell just by the font, it was Times New Roman. You could tell this was like, I'm not going through anymore, I'm just speaking my truth. And so he did, and he wrote this whole fucking thing, and it was like, let me tell you about these leftist filth bags, and we all know the terrible people, like, globalism's good, right? They're stupid. And it was so, and he talked about like Muslim terrorists and shit like that in this email. And I actually emailed him back, and I was like, okay, well, my career here is done, but, dude, you have like Islamic people that work for you. You have left-leaning people that work for you. How did this seem like an idea that you should do this? And he replied and was actually quite convivial, which was surprising, but I'm fairly certain that he did not absorb the point. But yeah, like, so for LinkedIn to suddenly have like a real fashy problem, not a shock. Not a fucking shock at all. It's amazing how many people have been, hey, No Hope for the Nate. Good to see you, my friend. Everyone follow No Hope for the Nate. It's amazing how many people have been praising weak leadership, although it's interesting finding out that Kenny has an election coming up. Makes even more sense as to why he's choosing to try to play that side of his base just to try to keep his job. It's extremely disappointing, but it makes sense for a weak leader like him. Yes. I think personally that what they are... Okay, I'm going to go a little pro wrestling on you here. I have this belief that wrestling imitates life. Sorry, allergies are killing me. I had to do that gross snort there. Pro wrestling is a very good simulacrum for the world around us. And I feel like Kenny is going to start looking weaker and weaker and weaker. And the conservatives will start to be louder and louder in saying who will stand up to him. Who will stand up to him? And Rachel Notley will be like, I will. And then some other person, there will be a leadership challenge in the CPC party, and some fucking Rob Anders asshole is going to be like, I will lead the way. Or like Stephen Harper or some shit. Like some really weird, like hardcore right wing. Like I could see them dusting off the corpse of Preston Manning for this shit. And they'll charge the ring with the chair, and they'll clear the ring, and they'll be like, there's a new sheriff in town, brother. Let me tell you, brother, we're going to clean the streets up. Raw! And the crowd will go wild, and we'll keep the conservatives in, because this is pro wrestling. This is what they do. Every time you say that, I just think of the Eric Bischoff TED Talk. Yeah, the Eric Bischoff is exactly this. I've been saying the whole thing about the politics of pro wrestling since Jean Chrétien's heel turn, because I'm old. But it's always been true. Gwyn Morgan is the Conrad Black of Mulrooney era Reagan era fucks. Yes. I also found him disconcertingly blinky. And let me explain. When he would speak, he would talk, and he'd be like, yes, I'm really excited to be a part of all of the exciting new things that are happening here at Encana, and the rebranding project. And like, how you can't process the fucking world. Like, upgrade, man. 32 frames per second at least. Jesus. Yeah, Gwen Morgan was a weird guy to work for, and like afterwards is just even worse. Like I would not have thought he was a good person, but now I'm like, oh, you're garbage. I remember some, and this is the classic company lore from my Encana days. The company decided that because Gwyn really liked wellness, which is hilarious. There was a photo of him that was published of him, like in a martial arts gi, like sitting in lotus position, like oh, and it's like wellness. Encana is all about wellness, and then this was right after the merger when Pan Canadian and AEC had merged, and someone wrote an ask the management team thing that was like, well, if this company's so about wellness, why are they giving us non-dairy creamer? To which the appropriate reply would have been, it's a petroleum product, and we're an oil company. But instead what they did was they made sure that people had skim milk as an alternative. And the reason all of this happened had nothing to do with non-dairy creamer or wellness. It was because previously the people who lived in one building were being delivered milk because the building itself didn't have a creamer guy, it had a milk guy. So they were being delivered milk. And when the company merged, that building started to get creamer because they had one supplier who did creamer. And people were like, but I would bring my cereal in. I'd bring a cereal box in and I would eat cereal for breakfast and I had milk. And so suddenly they're like, well, we can't say give us milk for our cereal, please. So instead we'll pretend like there's a wellness argument for non-dairy creamer. Like you have to drink a fuckload of creamy ass coffee for that to be a thing. Anyways, I'm way off topic here. Kenny changes gears whenever his leadership is threatened. If fluffy bunnies and rainbows were the way for him to keep power, he'd do it, no questions asked, and not for a second worry about the inconsistency with all prior fascist views as long as he keeps power. And I think more to the point, as long as the conservatives keep power. I don't think he's committed to the conservative cause. I don't think he's a conservative person. I think he's living a dream that is very, very fake, and that, like there's real reasons to suspect that this is the case anyways, which I won't get into, but he's just a grifter. He is doing the grift. His comments this week where he was like, it's time for us to stop treating the people who have decided to not get the vaccine like AIDS patients. And then the next day he was like, sorry about the comment about the AIDS patients. Yeah, like, no, dude, you're a fucking monster. And let's just travel back in time to how Jason Kenney treated AIDS patients. Oh yeah, wasn't he lobbying the American government to prevent gay people from being able to be at their partner's fucking bedside when they were dying of HIV during the height of the HIV crisis? Wasn't that Jason? Oh, right. He's a better man now. Just a con, a total grifter. Yep, abso-fucking-lutely. I don't think the conservative base as a whole in Canada, he's going to survive under 110. Is going to survive under 110 for much longer. Yeah, no, they're not, and that's also problematic, right? Like, the more that these groups, like this convoy, is for a purpose, right? And it's not for the purpose of making sure that people wind up with their jobs back. That is a line of horseshit. This convoy is spreading far right-wing ideology. This convoy is about the government conspiracy and about freedom and about everybody being educated to be a hero. And it is literally about fooling people into falling for fascism again. And it's working. There are so many people who are like defending this shit, and it's gross, but it's real. And for whatever reason, people just can't seem to recognize it. People are like, oh, that's not fascism. There's no Jews in the equation. No, that's still fascism. Fuck. I don't think the propaganda machine, not freedom convoy. Well, yeah, ultimately, it is exactly that. It is a false narrative with which to bang a drum and gain support. Like, do you remember the previous freedom convoy when they were like, United We Roll, and they were going to stop us from having a carbon tax because that worked, and also along the way, run over Indigenous people a bunch. The United We Roll people didn't have a giant fucking war chest to draw from. How did that change? Where'd that money come from? I give you a hint. It wasn't me. It wasn't George Soros. I feel very strongly that there's a lot of really shady motherfuckers who are willing to put money behind causes like this to support them. Not to support them like, make sure that they're staying out of jail or anything like that. They don't give a fuck. This is the same as the people who expected Trump to pardon them for their role in the insurrection. Trump doesn't care about you. These people don't care about you. What they're going to do is they're going to support you and give you this war chest of money, which isn't even fucking real, and convince you that you're protected so that you can go and you can fight. And you're probably, I'm sure Tamara's going to pay for me to be off work for 2 weeks. I'm a soldier in her fight. Of course she will. Yeah, how'd that work out? And you can't even make a point with these people. The moment you do, they instantly go, well, that's okay. I'm going to keep fighting for your freedom anyway. Keep listening to what the media tells you, even though they're the ones eating up media lies. I just now see other individuals in other countries following suit. Oh, it's like watching the Yellow Vest movement start in Paris all over again to a degree. And in traditional Calgary fashion, our Yellow Vest movement was a fascist movement that just was like, oh, hey, a workers' movement. Let's be fascists. Yeah. This is totally the following soup thing. Yeah, it's a good day so far. TugRad085. A good day, assuming that I'm not suddenly like, Pat King's getting all of the Nazis to come. But I get the hate thing, hate bot smasher thing. We'll fix all the shit anyways. They feed money to get their way, not help. Yeah, this isn't about the importance of the lives of the people in the convoy. This is about the importance of the message of the people of the convoy. The people who are behind this aren't going to give fuck number one if bullets start flying and if good people, quote unquote, are getting killed. Hello, it's good to see you. Welcome to the stream. I hope you have a good time. I'm ranting and raving about the socialisms. And right now we're talking about the convoy because I live in Canada and it's everywhere I look. Not the actual convoy, although there were people just yesterday on the street near me, near my house, protesting against the mean old vaccine old. And I was like, cool. You don't have to like the vaccine. You don't have to. What does your sign say? And I was across the street. If I go over there right now, I'm just going to wind up in jail. It's not a good idea. So I'm like, okay, what are they saying? And I think that the gist of it was they were SAIT students who were very upset about the fact that they're expected to be vaccinated in order to go to school, and they can't, and therefore fascism, communism, whatever ism that they think is being imposed on them. And that's funny. As a smoker, I can't sit in SAIT and have a cigarette. If I wanted to go to SAIT, I would have to either quit smoking or do my smoking outside of school hours. And that includes I can have a cigarette during my break between classes, for example. SAIT's not stopping me from doing that. They may be making it a little bit more awkward by me having to leave the facility and go outside and off of the immediate property of the school, but it's not like I can't do it. It's just shitty. Oh, but Jim, that's not the same thing at all. The same thing would be if you had to inject a vaccine that made, the vaccine's not going to kill anybody. What do you think about the Russian-Ukraine situation? I'm not sure enough about it. I shared on Facebook a link to a video that Vosh... No, it wasn't Vosh. I don't remember who, but talking about the specifics of it. Oh, you know what? Let me just quickly pop open my phone and I'll tell you what video it was. It's Nervous Times. Where was it? There we go. Ukraine, the country that defied Vladimir Putin, and it's by Adam something. Sorry, Adam something. And I thought it was a really good thing. I don't know enough about what to believe. I know some of the gist of it, and that is that there has been far right battles back and forth within the sovereign state of the Ukraine for a long time, mostly supported by Russia, who is very much a fascist state at this point, in my opinion. And they have been ramping up. They started marching troops not terribly long ago into... Shit. Oh, it's gone out of my head, the name of the fucking place. But there's the big thing quite a while back. They just started, like, you know, troops were there with their, like, no Russian logos, but they were clearly troops. And people were like, that's not cool. What do I think about it? I think that it's bad. I think that Putin is trying to push. And I think that American and, the world interest is to push back. Anytime we're saying, anytime that they say, hey, I just want to have the Sudetenland and then I'll be fine, they're probably going to go after Alsace-Lorraine. That's just a thing. It's a thing that happens. I guess last week in our rural high school, there was a massive student walkout and protest of restrictions. Yeah, and you know what? Like, I keep hearing people talking about the difference between, like, the big metropolis of Calgary or Edmonton versus the rural experience. And, like, you know, and I'm like, I don't fucking care. You're a Canadian. You are going to interact with the world around you. Get vaccinated. If you can't get vaccinated for actual reasons, okay. But if you can't get vaccinated because Jesus doesn't want you to, well, then that's not a fucking actual reason, and shut up and get vaccinated. And I don't care if you don't like that. And it's not about stripping you of your freedom. It's about supporting a larger picture than just you. Freedom of choice is what we... Yeah. The kindergarten in Canada, massive in regards to how many students they have as a rural school. Kiev, Crimea, that was what I was looking for, was Crimea. The march into Crimea. And yeah, Putin likes to push those buttons. Much like, he's like North Korea, but with like an actual threat behind him. You know what I mean? I think it's all very sketch. And I think that, you know, like, the time to stand up to him was then, as opposed to now. It's just like, you know, yeah, go stand up to him. The idea that he's upset that, like, NATO's influence is expanding, and therefore I'm just going to march on the Ukraine. That might not be an okay take. It's weird how the Olympics seem to be Russians' power play time. That's kind of always the case, though, whether they're boycotting the Olympics or using them as, you know, look at the superiority of the Russian man to a stupid American dog. Like, that's a thing that's always been. And realistically, I mean, wasn't the first Olympics in Germany, like, in the time of Hitler, and it was done as like a total propaganda move that we just never really figured out and just kept doing, and skiing and shooting and stuff. While the world pretends to be peaceful and respectful, when no one would do something nasty, they do. I don't get the context of that at this point. It's probably because I need to take a quick cigarette break. I'm gonna go outside for 7 minutes. I will be back. And we will talk more, whether it's about this or the other thing I do want to do today is I want to go hit up the PPC webpage and talk a little bit about big tent politics, why it's not actually going to be a thing, and why I distrust the PPC party because of the lack of a stance that they take on a lot of issues. Where's that map someone made about all the countries that had to be invaded to keep oil floating when they lit derricks on fire? Watching from Wisconsin, and I love to go fishing in Canada. Well, we as Canadians, who are not the ridiculous ones that are storming our borders and shit, or shutting down our borders and shit, we love having you come up for fishing. And when all this COVID business is done, I welcome you 100% to come fish, as long as you don't overfish. No overfishing. You know, this is a great country. It's full of great people, except for the dumb shits who are currently slow-rolling schools in Ottawa. Anyways, I shall return. I'm going to put on some crappy homemade music that will drive you all slowly insane. And I will be right back. Okay, I am back. We'll stop the terrible music. I really enjoy making that, though, I have to say. The cheesy fake music. I really enjoy it. And I used the same skills to work on a new song. Maybe I'll play that real quick. Essentially, I got given a clip of guitar and hiccups. Maybe I'll even show the Reaper view. Oh, I don't have that. Okay, I won't show the Reaper view. That's lame. Don't I have? No, I don't. Okay, I don't have a thing for the Reaper view. But essentially, I got sent a clip of a guitar line, and I wanted to make something out of it. So I actually built a drum line for the parts where it was guitar and drums, but only like a little bit. And so I've just built a drum line to go with it. Where is it? There it is. Loading. And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but just to give you an idea of what I did. And do I have... Oh, wait. I have a bunch of stuff that's muted here. What is muted? Fuck, I should be better at life. Clean bass, fuzzy bass. And okay, yeah, we're good. Okay, I'm going to press play. So I got this clip that's the thing that starts things off. Oh, clean bass is still muted. Hell yeah, that's cool. Right on, babe. So it's just like the drums and this cool little delayed guitar. And I wanted to write a whole song out of it, so I did. And right away we get to see I just made fake drums to go with it, so I have something in my head. Anyways, I don't need to belabor the point, but I just think it's a really cool thing to be able to like have that accessible at my fingertips. It was Reaper cost me $60 to be able to own a little bit of figuring stuff out. I bought a drum pack as a result of wanting different drum sounds, and that's been the thing that I've used for a bunch of different projects. So it's kind of fun. It allows me to have Reaper's an amazing tool. Allows me to be able to just make music, even though I can't play drums. I have like 8 drum kits around me, but I can't play drums. Sugar's sending me... Oh, the oil map thing. Okay, let's pop this open, and we will talk about it. I need this tab here, and we can paste that in here. And then I need to switch over so you can see the thing that I see. Browser view. So this is a world oil map. Map is a web location intelligence application supported and updated using country official spatial database services and other sources related to the oil and gas sector. It's built to assist in academic research and teaching as well as the general public. I'm Rock Lael. Allow me to invite you to collaborate and update. Okay, I don't know what that means, but this is a world oil map. What is there like a legend on it? I don't know what I'm looking at. That's the thing. So the red, fuck, there's no explanation of the legend. Am I doing this wrong? Is it just me? No, there's no legend. Why would there be a legend? So there's like 20, these I'm assuming are, oh, we're looking at deposits. Okay. If I go with refineries, I feel like not a whole lot is changing. I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at. Sugar, what is this? Help me understand. If you go to Russia, you can see where all the oil is. Okay, that I understand. Okay, let's go to take off. Put on deposits, and Russia. We'll zoom in. Am I missing something? Production, exploration. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of nothing in Russia. But then again, I think I fucked... Hang on, you know what? Let's reload the page because I probably cocked something up. And... Russia... Am I missing something, or am I just not seeing a whole lot of Russia has oil? Maybe that's the point. Russia doesn't have oil. I'd be surprised by that, but, you know, I've been surprised by better things. Versus as we get into... Like, you know, the stands, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, there's a lot more oil. I have no idea where the Ukraine would be because I'm a terrible geographician. Geographician, that's the word I'll use. If I'm reading this correctly, Russia doesn't have a whole fuck of a lot of oil and gas at its beck and call, and as a result is a little bit screwed in that regard. And I've heard this before. Yeah, the map needs legends. Yes, they also have the coast, which is, you know, very important. The old Chukchi Sea, East Siberian Sea, the Sea of Okhotsk. It looks like, is that Kamchatka? Am I looking at Kamchatka here, or is this Kamchatka? I don't fucking know what I'm looking at. I'm an idiot. But yeah, it looks to me like what we're seeing is clearly Russia don't have fuck all for oil. Really, once you start moving over into, you know, more east, you start to see, holy shit, we got some oils. Is Syria, Cyprus, Georgia. And didn't they march into Georgia not that terribly long ago too, if I'm not mistaken? Across the Caspian Sea? I think so. But yeah. Russia equals fucked for oil. And oil equals important for survival in the current model. So, yeah, Russia definitely doesn't have a lot of oil and gas deposits and doesn't have a whole lot of oil and gas production within their borders. So it makes sense that they're like, hey, we need breathing room. And it's definitely, it's an excellent theory. I also think that Putin is just a nut and wants to restore the glory of the Soviet Union, but without all that filthy communism, just, you know, Putin as God King. And to be fair, I don't consider the communism of Russia to be communism. Yeah, he misses his Soviet... I miss my Soviet Union. I liked it a lot. We used to be able to go to Soviet Union, and there were women, there were blue jeans you could buy from Amerikansky. It was good. Me. I don't like Putin. I really do think he's a fascist as well. I use that term a lot, but only where it's relevant. I'm not like, you know, someone goes, well, I don't wear my seatbelt. Ah, fascist. That's not who I am. But there is a definition for fascism, and it's a very real definition. And there's a lot of people fitting that fucking bill these days. And on that topic, what a great way to segue into my concerns about the People's Party of Canada. What does PPC actually stand for? I honestly don't know. PPC Canada. The People's Party of Canada. Which, I mean, just the name alone, it doesn't have to be a dog whistle. But, oh man, is that ever close to a dog whistle, right? When you talk the People's Party, like the People's Republic of China, which is super about the people, it has a real, populist kind of vibe. And people don't know what populism means. They think it means popular. In fact, it's not. The fascists love selective populism. The idea that our leader knows the will of the people and therefore is, finger on the pulse of the people. So whatever he does is for the good of the people because, he knows the will of the people. Which is exactly how all these fucking convoy pricks talk. That's a thing. Anyways, let's talk about the PPC. So this came from, I had a conversation, one of the guys in one of the bands that I'm in is a very, very, very good person who is a right-leaning libertarian. I don't think being a right libertarian is inherently evil, and I want to make that very abundantly clear. My friend is not a bad person. He's a very good person with a very good heart. We are both libertarians. We just disagree on a lot of the cause and effect stuff. But we often have really good conversations, and I am in no way shit-talking this particular friend of mine. If I felt he was a bad person, I wouldn't play in a band with him. No matter how good he is at the thing he does, I would just walk away. But he is a right-leaning libertarian. He's a bit of a crypto bro sometimes. He's got all kinds of things that they all love. And he loves talking about sovereign currencies and all these kinds of things that libertarians love. And we have some great conversations. And often I am forced to bolster my arguments and think on my feet because he has very good points on some things. So we were talking about the change in leadership. I think that was what the impetus was, the change in leadership of the Conservative Party. And he mentioned something about the PPC, and I was like, fascists! They're all fascists! Because, I am sometimes a little bit hyperbolic. And honestly, that would have been my take on them. Everything I have seen in the media about them has been like, the people who are involved are straight up fucking fasci. Now, that's not very different from the people who were involved in the Conservative Party, that when, Aaron O'Toole, the former leader, his number one guy was the guy behind Canada Proud. Like, I sees him as I sees him. But the guys that I've seen in the media about the PPC have been like no-fap dudes and Proud Boys and shit like that are like, clearly this is a bad party. And my friend argued that in fact, if you talk to them, they are not that. They are libertarians. And that when the Libertarian Party fell, this is essentially the thing that stood up in its grave. And they're trying to make a big tent conservative political party that has a more libertarian vibe. Now, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, I am, because I'm not a right-wing person. But a right-wing libertarian party, like, okay, that's cool. But here's the problem, is the big tent. We keep talking about this big tent party business, and I get it. The Democrats in the States are a big tent party for people who are realistically center-right and over. And the Republican is a big tent party for people who are center-left and over. The concept of the big tent is not new. It's sensible. You try to appeal to a broad base of people. The problem is being the world we are in. So, using the Democrat Party as an example, Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, these are not people who are going to be having the same group of supporters as Kristen Sinema, even Joe Biden, who is a giant joke. That's just the facts. By being a big tent, you draw attention to people who don't represent a large portion of their people, and you draw attention away from people. It's the way the world goes. And he asked me the question, what freedoms do you think you would lose under a libertarian-based PPC party? And I said, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is abortion. Obviously, I am not free to have an abortion because I don't have a uterus. Therefore, me getting pregnant, probably not a thing. So it's not my issue, but it's an issue that I care about because I think that access to abortions is very important for the overall health of a society, and specifically for the individuals who are, the people who are pregnant, who want to make a decision about the future of their lives. And to me, this one's a home run. And it's based on the fact that once upon a time, I helped with a buddy of mine's political party when he was running here in the greater Albertas for a group called the Alberta Party, which this was their first election, and now I would not support them in the least, and I don't think he would either. But at the time, they seemed like they were actually a very interesting group. And if they had been the group that I thought they were, I would have definitely continued to throw my support behind them because I really liked what they were doing. We would go door knocking. Hello, hey, we would like to talk about some politics. There's an upcoming thing. My friend Kevin is running. What up? And the number of times that people, particularly working class people, would go, "What do you stand on abortion?" And Kevin would say, well, abortion is not a provincial issue. Abortion is protected in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is a federal thing. And all we can have is, from a provincial perspective, is laws that affect the access to things. But we have to provide it, and it has to be covered. And they go, yeah. But what if it wasn't? What if it wasn't? What if it suddenly became a provincial issue? But that's not going to happen. It's not a thing. That's not a thing. But what if it was? Okay, well, if you're asking me, and Kevin's answer was, my personal take on abortion is I believe that it is a thing that should be protected. I think that women should be allowed to have the right to have an abortion. However, the philosophy that I'm trying to be a part of in this party is that I would meet with my constituents and try to understand what their perspective is and take that forward, whether it meets my perspective or not. So you're for abortion. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I need to hear. It's a simple water test to be like, yep, you're not one of my people. Abortion is a huge issue. Libertarians, even right-wing libertarians, if they are actually libertarians, should be 100% behind and supportive of abortion. And the reason is the government shouldn't be able to tell you that you can't do it. Now, in the conversation, my friend said, but the government shouldn't have to pay for it. And I said, okay, but we don't have freely available services that you can just start up like Joe's abortion clinic here in Canada. You can't do that. So it is covered by the government, and that's just the way that the law is enshrined in tough shit. And if you were to suddenly outlaw federally funded abortions, but allow for abortion clinics to spread out, it would be a really stupid negative impact in that transition period. So not a thing. That's a misdirect. And he says, okay, yeah, that's fair. Would it surprise you that the PPC doesn't have a standpoint on abortion? And I said, yes, it would. But then I thought about it and I listened to what he was saying, and it makes actual sense. So I did a little digging. And sure enough, they don't have a standpoint on it. And there's a reason for that. If you're a libertarian, as I was saying, you support abortion. If you are a fire-breathing Jesus believer, a charismatic Christian, you are against it because that's God. He has made a baby that's a gift of God's love inside your tum-tum. And you want to take that away from God? That's evil. That's murder. If you are a fasci, you probably don't want abortion unless it's, for people who are not white, that kind of thing, or whatever. That is a divisive issue that a big tent party can't take a stand on, but they will take a stand on. So I want to go through and look at the plan that the PPC has. So I'm going to switch over my view here. Sorry, there's a funny looking dude on there. Common sense policies that put Canadians first. That is a fine way of saying we're not going to commit. Our platform. People's Party of Canada. So let's look at the high level topics. Pipelines, allowing our oil and gas industry to grow. Okay. Indigenous issues a new relationship based on mutual respect. Okay, that feels very blank. International trade, getting rid of interprovincial trade barriers, which I am no expert in by any stretch, but okay. Housing, cooling down an overheated market. Not opposed to that. I think our housing market is ridiculous. Firearms, respecting legal firearm owners and targeting criminals. That seems like everybody. Equalization, fairness for all provinces. This is a fucking joke, but okay. COVID policy, a rational approach that respects our rights and freedoms. Healthcare, giving provinces the incentives to deal with wait times and rising costs, because wait times are a serious issue here in the Canada. Wait times we often think of as like, oh yeah, it's a nuisance, but actually, like, people can die because of wait times. That's a very real thing that has happened. It's it's bad. Wait time's bad. Public finance, balancing the budget in a first mandate, then cutting taxes. Global warming and the environment, rejecting alarmism and focusing on concrete improvements. This is a fine way of saying ignoring the very real pressing threat of global warming and instead just doing the bare minimum and not clapping ourselves on the back for doing it. Freedom of expression. That even looks like Elon Musk. I'm sorry. Protecting Canadians from censorship and discrimination. Economy, encouraging investment and productivity growth. Veterans, standing behind the men and women who sacrificed for our country. Canadian identity, ending official multiculturalism and preserving Canadian values and culture. That one sentence is amazing to me because of the whole thing that we've talked about, where Canada is a cultural mosaic. The States is a cultural melting pot where everyone is welcome to become American. Canada, as a mosaic, is a tapestry made up of various different kinds of people who are all distinct and individual. We have never been a melting pot. Multiculturalism was baked into who we are. So preserving Canadian values and culture means doing the multiculturalism thing. Unless what you mean by Canadian values and culture is white values and culture. I mean, that might be a way to phrase this. I can't say I take them seriously upon saying this. This is part of the convoy. Canadian identity is multiculturalism. Yes. Now, don't be fooled. That's not to say that this policy matches what the convoy is talking about. The convoy is made up of people who don't understand basic things. Like the idea, it is the most obvious thing that if there are difficulties in an economy, you want to stop immigration and focus on making sure that there's work for all of your people. That makes super good sense until you look at the actual data and you find out that the more open your borders are, the stronger your economy tends to do, and the better it is able to withstand a lot of problems. That's not an obvious thing, and so people who don't know better go, I don't want immigration. Multiculturalism, well, goddamn it, we're white, right? But we're not. We weren't when we got here. I happen to know that there's this thing called Indigenous people who were very real and still are, even though we tried really hard to make that not true. There's also a lot of people who were not white. And if your idea of culture is, basically like a homogenous view of the world, then okay, multiculturalism is your enemy, because people of varying backgrounds and varying experiences see the world in very different ways, and that's good. It's actually important to have all of this kind of shit. It goes back to that thing that I've told you about the research that a friend of a friend was doing into the presence of a no man as opposed to yes man on a board of directors. If there's one person on a board of directors who constantly pushes back on the CEO and makes the CEO sweat, that company will do better, because if you have nothing but yes men, your ideas are just good. If you have someone pushing back, your good idea, you better be able to prove. and then you will actually do better. It's better for the organization, and it's better for the leader. The length of time that leader is the CEO of those companies is dramatically longer, as is the growth of the company. And we're talking about a country, the more disparate ideas you have and the more you allow for people to question and push back, the stronger your policies wind up being. You know what was an easy policy to push? The idea of residential schools. I don't think that was a hard sell, because everyone went, yeah, that sounds good. We'll throw them Indians in the residential schools, and we'll breed the Indian out of them and turn them into white folk. I feel like a lot of the things that we're fighting about now, we're fighting because we're having all sorts of different voices come to the table and saying things like, if that conversation happened now, the whole residential school thing, I would hope that Canada would be like, oh no, there are far too many people who think this is a genuinely terrible idea. And if we're doing anything in this regard, we should not, but if we are doing anything in this regard, I want oversight. I want protection. I want ombudsman involvement or protection for the individuals and like all this shit. Because we're better when we challenge each other's ideas. By that I mean I can see this being the party that grows its base because of it. And that is absolutely the case. Absolutely the case. And the convoy, the concept of the convoy is a very fascist concept. It is all about an actual authoritarian movement wherein we want to get rid of those who are currently in power and just have the Pat Kings of the world lead us into the future, versus a party that started off as libertarians. Interesting. Immigration. Oh, I didn't even... Sorry. Refugees, ending open border policies and prioritizing persecuted groups. So I'm all for prioritizing persecuted groups. Ending open border policies is exactly the wrong choice. We should be increasing the amount of immigration that we are getting. That's supported by all kinds of data. And the idea that open borders relates to refugees, like, whoa, no. Refugees, we have a responsibility at a like legal responsibility level to the world, UN and all that shit, to be open to refugees. This is how things are. To end those policies and prioritize persecuted groups. Who's a refugee that's not a persecuted group? Yes, there are people who will be like, oh, I'm a refugee, I live in England, and my mom doesn't like me, so I had to move out, and I wanted to come to get, it's not a real thing, but I mean, it's a real thing. There are people who will come up with bullshit claims. And that's why we have a process to vet those claims and decide if the person deserves refugee status. We don't have open borders for refugees. We accept all refugees because the UN law thing, and then we decide whether or not we accept the claim. And that's the path to citizenship for a refugee, period. Immigration, reducing overall levels and prioritizing skilled immigrants. This is a common yammering point for right-wing people. You know what actually builds an economy? Building an economy. I know that's a bullshit thing to say. What I mean by this is, and I actually had this conversation the other day with a friend of mine. We were talking about, actually this exact issue. She said, I think that what we need to do is stop allowing just anyone into the country and focus on people who are like, architects and engineers and people, so that we can build up our infrastructure to be able to support having more people of all different, levels of income and income ability and all that kind of stuff. Great. Sounds awesome. Except it's totally not. There is a net benefit for immigration to economies of all levels. The only group who is hurt by immigration is poor, uneducated white males who are only temporarily hurt and often are hurt in such a mild fashion as to encourage education and nothing more. the idea that we're going to build up our infrastructure, we're not doing that. No one is fucking doing that. The Americans aren't doing it. Canada's not doing it. We are allowing our infrastructure to fail because of this conservative politics mindset that says every single penny has to be super, transparent and justifiable and all that kind of stuff. These projects are expensive. If your view is so narrow that it's just the next election cycle, you don't make decisions that are costly. You don't make decisions that are dangerous. You don't make decisions that have long-term benefits. You only worry about the short term. And as a result, nothing's getting done, right? Yeah, we got road work. Cool. But we're not fixing things. We're not making our country better. We're not doing anything to get off of petroleum that is based on dead Godzillas, right? Yeah, we are in the sense that, you're like, oh yeah, some company spins up a wind farm. Isn't that wonderful? Yay. But that doesn't fucking change anything. We're not spending that money. So we don't have this need for architects or for engineers or whatever. We have those people who are here already. We could be giving them jobs, and we could be encouraging people who come from outside of the country to do these kinds of jobs. What we're not doing is investing in having an infrastructure that would allow for this development of infrastructure that would improve the lot. It's this is all weak like tea. So reducing overall levels. I mean, it sounds good on paper, but it's just not a thing. Foreign policy, focusing on the security and prosperity of Canadians. Isn't that funny how our foreign policy is specifically about Canadians and not about, foreign actors and how to make the world a better place? Supply management, making dairy, poultry, and eggs more affordable. God, I hope that's just them being, providing an example. Because, can you imagine if that was their... we don't care about the supply chain. We just want to make sure that you can get your milk, eggs, and chicken bits for cheaper. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. But you never know. All right, so let's dig in. You'll notice at no point did we talk about prisons. We didn't talk about drug legalization. We didn't talk about prison reform, which libertarians, by and large, if they're actually libertarians, are hugely supportive of ending the idea of nonviolent criminals being in jails, right? Even right-wing libertarians should feel that way because it is the nanny state and it is big government and all these kinds of things. But a conservative big tent party can't say, yeah, we're just going to dump out all the drug dealers onto your streets. They'll never say that. So they hide behind this thing about, we're not going to make a stand on moral issues. When really what they're not making a stand on is the topics that isolate them from the big tent. And if I was a conservative, I think I would see through this shit. And more importantly, if I was a God-fearing Christian conservative or a whatever type of conservative, I would be asking these same questions. I believe that they're asking these questions when conservative candidates come to their door. They're probably asking the abortion question. They're probably asking all of these kinds of things. And to be honest, this reminds me of some Republican websites. Yeah, it's exactly that. It is a big tent party that says nothing but basically talks about the little nuanced details that they feel comfortable, right? Right wing in general is okay with firearms. Right wing in general is okay with changing the equalization payments. Right wing in general, cool down the housing market. Okay. These are easy wins. Let's look at Canadian identity. We'll probably dig in on a couple of these, but I'll try to do, I'm not going to try and do a Preston Manning voice. I'll do a Hick voice. Hick voice seems to be the right choice here. Okay, so, Where's my mouse? There it is. Sorry. Issue. A nation must be based on a sense of belonging, of participating in a common national project, and sharing the same values. It's only when these sentiments are widely shared that we can develop the trust and common understanding necessary for our society and institutions to function. In the past, immigrants who came to Canada gradually integrated into our society. They did, of course, keep some aspects of the culture of their country of origin. They became Canadian, but with a distinct flavor, like a melting pot, as it were. This is a type of multiculturalism that enriches our society. However, over the past decades, the government of Canada has pursued a policy of official multiculturalism that encourages immigrants to keep the values and cultures they left behind instead of integrating into Canadian society and adapting Canadian values and cultures. When this cult of diversity, Justin Trudeau has pushed this ideology even further into a form of extreme multiculturalism. He described Canada as the first post-national state with no core identity. In a free society, immigrants have the right to cherish and maintain their cultural heritage. However, that doesn't mean we have any obligation to help them preserve it with government programs and taxpayers' money. A vast majority of Canadians rightly expect to learn about our history and culture, master one of our official languages, and adopt widely shared Canadian values. Ooh, let's talk about this. So, that history of immigrants who came to Canada and gradually integrated into our society. This is absolutely true. 100% true, has always been true. This is why here in the prairies, I am currently employed as a hunter of buffalo. I'm a nomad. Don't let the house fool you. This is just a backdrop. I have a green screen on the plains. I follow the herds and I hunt. Wait, what's that? I don't do that? I'm full of shit? That's because we didn't do that when we came here. We came here and we were like, oh, we have these old world values like the monarchy, and you damn well have to do the things. And we took the land away from the people who were here first and did not respect Canadian culture. We implemented what we considered to be Canadian culture. So let's not pretend like that's not a real thing. So, even if you take that as writ, and this is the thing that we did, from just that point in history where this was Canadian from then on. Okay, that's cool. So we had immigrants who came to Canada, gradually integrated into our society. I would agree. I don't think that's an incorrect statement. I also don't think that we're asking that to not be the case anymore. I'm not saying that they integrated into our society in the sense that they all became white-skinned and got a really sweet house in the suburbs. But we, this great Canadian experiment, whatever you want to call it, they became an active partner in the long run. Not necessarily all people. Some people stayed, clung to their experiences and their histories and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. We respect that, or at least we should. We have a Chinese multicultural center, which is a great example of, in our Chinatown, there is a great local community of people who, some of them did not join the Western culture that we are, supposedly all living under, and instead just maintained their own little tight-knit group. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's awesome. The Chinese Multicultural Center, or is it Chinese Cultural Center, something like that. It's a gorgeous building. It celebrates Chinese culture. They have a really great little museum in the basement. And that's not anti-Canadian, because Canada should not ever be about forcing you to be one way or another. I mean, except for the part where we totally did that in the beginning. Again. We have always had immigration, and that the immigrants who've come here have made the decision whether or not A, they want to stay, B, they want to adapt to the general Canadian culture, and how much they want to adapt to the Canadian culture, how much they want to maintain their individuality. Nothing wrong with that. What we're talking about here, if I'm not mistaken, what we're talking about here is the threats to our culture, like Sharia law. And first off, when Justin Trudeau describes Canada as the first post-national state, I have no idea if he actually said that or not, mostly because the minute that Justin Trudeau starts speaking, I stop listening because he's a sack of crap. I do not like Justin Trudeau. He is a sack of crap. If he did say that, it's a stupid thing to say. There is nothing post-racial about Canada. Or sorry, post-national. Like, that doesn't... We're a nation. We have closed borders. Or controlled borders, at the very least. We certainly view ourselves as a nation state. We have an army that protects the national sovereignty of the nation state and the people abroad. Like, what part of us are post-national? That's fucking stupid. Certainly, we still have plenty of problems with our Indigenous communities, with our people of color communities, or communities of color, I suppose, is the way that less awkward people would say that. We have all kinds of growing up to do, and Justin Trudeau gets away with pretending like, oh yeah, we're post-racial because we have abandoned the residential school program. Cool. And what happens when people have valid claims for reconciliation payments? Oh right, you fight them in court. You, Justin Trudeau. We have a long way to go. And we're not really moving down the road. The thing that Justin Trudeau does is he talks and he thinks that he's doing a good job of convincing people that we're walking down that road when we're not. We're just standing still. That's how I sees it. But this whole thing reeks of the dangerous foreigners who are coming to push the white culture out, right? This isn't great replacement stuff, but it edges real close up to it. And there's a reason for that. They're trying to appeal to all of those people. A libertarian theoretically would want open borders. In my mind, liberty of movement, freedom of movement. I think that it makes sense that I should be able to go anywhere on earth where there is jobs and not have to worry about, can I legally emigrate to this place or not. Then you go, oh, but everyone will come to America. First off, will they? Second off, so? Then what will happen is, if there's, let's just say that the land of opportunity is here in America, and everyone, the whole world starts going, I'm moving to America, and they're making plans, and they're calling realtors and stuff, well, that opportunity starts to diminish, because all of a sudden you won't have space to own in America. And you go, you know what, I'll build a house. It'll be good. I'll build a house. But yeah, now you can't afford to build a house because house builders are more busy and they're not able to take on the projects and all that kind of stuff. Like, there are natural economic factors at play that prevent every single person on the earth from moving to America. However, if they have the option to do so, and we have the option to do so, I would move, for example, to maybe Spain, right? I'm a level 13 Spaniard in my Duolingos. I could probably, learn to enjoy life in Spain. I think that would be a great place to live. And I could probably work in Spain. Cool. Does that mean that everyone's going to do that? No, of course not. It's open borders give the option to do that. Open borders, and before people get all uppity about like, oh my God, open borders, that's the devil's work. That's what we used to have. That's what America and Canada both used to have. When you got here from the old world and said, my name is Gordon McSmitherington, everyone did this. They went, Gordon McSmitherington, probably got typos in there, handed you a thing and said, welcome to Canada. Hope you don't die. There was no process where you had to justify whether or not you deserve to be in America or Canada. There was no time where you would be kicked out of the country. This idea is dumb. And you know what? those goddamn Irish would come and they wouldn't be like the rest of us, and so we hated them, and the Italians, and any group that wasn't white at that particular moment. It's always those people are coming and trying to change our cultural heritage, and no, they're not. They're coming just to try a new place to live, and like, living in their way in this new world, in their new world, whatever you want to call it. That's all right. Who fucking cares? Personally, I'm not a fan of Sharia law. I don't see that there is a value to establishing it as a legal structure. That's my own personal bias, and I'd be more than happy to have a conversation and having even like a national or a provincial conversation about the subject to decide if it was something that we wanted to implement. My understanding of Sharia law is that it is very one-sided when it comes to peepees and hoo-hoos, and that it gets touted as being relevant for property disputes, marriage, divorce, things like that. But in fact, Sharia law is a much bigger thing. I just don't see why the things that are different between our legal structure and Sharia law are things that I think are important. And I don't want that to be a thing. That said, if a group of people want to have a legal structure that has boundaries, right? They're not dealing with murder cases, but if they're dealing with divorces and they want to do it in ways that I may think are not awesome, but that are the ways that they want to do it, who the fuck am I to say, no, you can't do that? I don't care. As long as the end result is fair to the people who are involved in it, fine. I don't want it, but I wouldn't necessarily like fight it. But this whole idea is like, oh yeah, Justin Trudeau, he wants to implement Sharia law. Justin Trudeau wants to make the white man no longer the majority power holder. He wants the great replacement. And they're not saying that here, but when you read this, it fits that narrative. And this is the big tent thing. Nothing about this overtly says anything. It says a vague value statement, which they don't do values, remember. But it's a vague value statement that implies that they're taking some kind of a stance on immigration. Okay. And they don't like that it's going to change the country, and they want to make sure that we cherish and maintain cultural heritage. Let's see if there's there's facts. Let's find out the facts. Canada is and has always been a diverse country. We have First Nations and Inuit, 2 official languages, a multi-ethnic population, and very different regional cultures. I agree with all of that. I find it funny, except for the fact that Canada has always been a diverse country. Canada has only been a diverse country. I guess it depends entirely on realistically, pre-white folk, Canada was still a diverse country because, contrary to popular image, Indigenous does not mean, they did the following 10 things and how the society is structured. All of the Indigenous groups had their own structures, their own rules, their own beliefs, their own languages a lot of the time. So you know what, I will give that one up. I just feel like the diversity may have not been so strong when the white folk got here, and maybe what we did was we took a very diverse country and said, stop that. And then slowly that has eroded over time to the point where we are a diverse country again. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Our distinct values are those of a contemporary Western civilization. They include democracy, individual rights and freedoms, including freedom of religious belief and freedom to criticize religion, equality between men and women, the equal treatment of all citizens regardless of ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation, the rule of law, separation of state and religion, tolerance and pluralism, and loyalty to the wider society instead of to one's clan or tribe. So this, you know what though? This paragraph says fuck the convoy. Am I the only one getting that? Individual rights and freedoms came after democracy, interestingly enough. including freedom of religious belief, freedom to criticize religion, which is not something that a lot of those people are okay with. If I go down there and like, hey, I'm an atheist, fuck your God, right in his dead God ass, I'm probably going to get murdered by some people. But yeah, that's a thing. Equality, definitely not a thing when we're talking about peenies and peepees and hoo-hoos. Equal treatment of all citizens regardless of ethnicity, religion, and sexual orientation. Definitely not something they're with. They are all cool with propping up. Look, there's brown folks here with us. Okay. That would be tokenism. That's not support and love for people who are not white. Sorry. Or sexual orientation. Yeah. What are they saying to the counter protests? Is it a lot of, I believe that you are a solidly competent heterosexual person who does not enjoy watching other men engage in coitus with your significant other? That sounds exactly like the kinds of things that they're yelling. The rule of law, clearly all about the rule of law. Separation of state and religion, that one they don't really touch on in the convoy, but tolerance and pluralism, definitely not. Definitely not. And loyalty to the wider society instead of to one's clan or tribe. You want to know what's an example of loyalty to the wider society instead of one's clan or tribe? How about getting a fucking vaccine? Think about that. Loyalty to the wider society means making the decision to put the benefit and the reduce the threat to the wider society for a simple medical intervention. That is 100% a fucking thing. 100% a fucking thing. And I'm with this paragraph. I just don't think they are. Our plan. Official multiculturalism is based on the idea that there is no unified Canadian society and no distinct Canadian identity to integrate into, and that we're just a collection of ethnic and religious tribes living side by side. I find it uncomfortable how much they're using the word tribe, honestly. But if we want to keep our country united and ensure social cohesion, we must focus on what unites us as Canadians, not what divides us. Okay? This is an interesting way of phrasing it. What they're saying is that Justin Trudeau's multiculturalism says there's no such thing as Canadian society. Every single person, every single one of us can agree there's a general, this is what Canadian society is. And there are fringes all around that. And I'm not talking about weird fringe groups. I mean different interpretations and different aspects and things that are completely separate and things that are, related but different and all that kind of stuff. Like all of us are in some way the fringe around the greater whole. And that greater whole it exists. Absolutely. It's not about integrating into it. This is my whole point about the cultural mosaic. It's about being a part of it and having the ability in a democracy for our ideas to get presented and to be potentially to have impact on that greater Canadian cultural identity. That's not a terrible thing. That's a good thing. If we want to keep our country united and ensure social cohesion, we must focus on what unites us, not what divides us. This is the sort of traditionalist vibe that I get off of this, is that idea that it doesn't matter what you bring to the table. You will shut up. This is what unites us. This is how we've always done it. You're going to do it this way. You're going to adapt to being a Canadian rather than potentially improving being a Canadian. That's the thing that bugs the shit out of me about this. The People's Party government will repeal the Multiculturalism Act and eliminate all funding to promote multiculturalism. Emphasize instead the integration of immigrants into Canadian society. Now, let me just say, I 100% support the idea of improving the ways that we can integrate immigrants into our society. I think it's really beneficial to make available things like English as a second language, and like being taught by people with a variety of different ethnic and religious backgrounds to be able to, make the conversation, make the transition to English a lot better. I think it's important to help in the process of getting somebody, if they have an educational certification, from wherever they're from, to see if we can't, help them to get that same kind of certification here. I think it's really beneficial to try to create environments that engage new immigrants with existing Canadians. Not because, well, they need to learn how to be like us, but we need to learn how they are and who they are so that we can all work together. This is a very liberal sounding take, I know, but when we don't do that integration, when we don't engage with newcomers or old comers or whatever comers you want to engage with, you create isolation. You create a fractured society, and you ensure that people are going to have a certain us and them mentality. I don't think it's necessary to take someone who is a new immigrant and like force them into this new mold of now you're a Canadian, Johnny. But engagement, fine, right? So I'm okay with the idea of emphasizing integration of immigrants into Canadian society. It's a question of how you do that. And why the fuck, if we're going to repeal the Multiculturalism Act and eliminate all funding to promote multiculturalism, are we going to be increasing funding in other ways? Or is that just not a thing? Or are we just going to say, in traditional libertarian right-wing chud perspective, we're going to get rid of the multiculturalism policy and just like applaud every time someone does a good thing with an immigrant? Because I feel like that's more the direction they're going to take. Substantially lower the total number of immigrants and refugees Canada accept every year from 350,000 to between 100,000 and 150,000, see our immigration policy. Again, this is a step in the wrong direction. Immigration is good. Immigration improves the economy. And not just immigration of the best and brightest, immigration of everybody, especially the refugee thing. Refugees bring a tremendous amount to this country and to any country, and often, not always, but often, are very quick to want to adapt. And it's because the place they're coming from, they're coming here for a reason. Sometimes it's economic, but a lot of the time it's some other aspect of the socio-political experience. And they're looking to get away from that. I'll give you an example. How about the Hungarian 56ers? If you're not familiar with what the Hungarian 56ers were, 1956 in Hungary, a bunch of people fled because the communists took power. And they are referred to as the 56ers. And they came to Canada, or various other places, but among other places, they came to Canada and were like, we don't want communism. And that's where Jeremy Farkas's family comes from, is the Hungarian 56ers. Really embraced the grind set, really embraced the idea of what it is to be Canadian and free market economies and the importance of freedom and all that shit. And I'm not sassing that. I mean, I am sassing that, but I'm not sassing it. That's an example of people who, I believe the 56ers were refugees. I could be wrong about that. But certainly the 56ers were immigrants who we accepted in large numbers and who came here with this mentality of, I'm fleeing a bad and I want this to be good. Let's do that. Let's make this good for us. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation to say that majority of people who are coming here looking for a better life. And what that looks like and how that plays out isn't going to be set in stone. But the idea that they're just going to come here and be like, hey, I'm in Canada now, so I'm going to talk real funny, and I'm going to go on the wildfire, and I'm going to ruin this. Like, that's just fucking stupid. It's just fucking stupid. Ensure that every candidate for immigration undergoes a face-to-face interview and answers a series of specific questions to assess the extent to which they align with Canadian values and societal norms. Like, seriously. That actually offends me. We don't agree on shit. Some of us right now are screaming and honking horns about very silly topics, whereas others of us are sitting on this live stream being all socialism-y. We don't, like, I'm not saying we don't have Canadian values and societal norms. Absolutely, every society has those, and then we have disparate, how far away from those are you? Can you honestly tell me anyone would pass this test? Like, obviously, people are going to pass the test, but, like, what does this look like? If we say, okay, what's a good example of a Canadian value? Okay, democracy. Jim, are you pro-democracy? And I go, well, honestly, I am a libertarian. I don't really, democracy is the thing that'll get us there, but I am a libertarian, and I believe in a society where we don't require a nanny state to govern as much as we, ultimately act on the morality that we share and work together to, ease problems. And, okay, wait, Jim, it's a simple question. Do you support democracy? I mean, yeah, I do, but it doesn't sound like you support democracy, Jim. You want some no government. You want anarchy. You want Mad Max beyond the goddamn Thunderdome. Get the fuck out of my country. That test would be real fucking hard to properly administer in a face-to-face interview to get the nuance of whether or not a candidate for immigration agrees and aligns. Like, again, this is all about streamlining thought and preventing disparate ideas. Why are disparate ideas so bad? Jesus fuck. All right, let's try a different one. There's got to be better. You know what? Let's do it. Let's jump right in. I'm gonna make a prediction. I'm not looking at my screen. I'm gonna make a prediction that there is a lot of ass kissing and nothing of any value here. But let's find out. All right. Issue. The Indigenous population of Canada is extremely diversified. Apparently that's an issue for them. It accounts for about 5% of Canada's population and comprises First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. There are more than 600 First Nations communities dispersed across the country. More than half of First Nations Canadians don't live on reserves. All accurate statements. I got nothing to complain about there. If you're, for the person that was watching from Wisconsin, was it? In case you're not familiar with the terms, First Nations would be what, traditionally you would have called Indians. They're various Indigenous people from Plains, from BC, from wherever. The Inuit is the people who historically, unfortunately, were referred to as Eskimos, which is also a shitty thing to say. Please don't use those words. Inuit is the appropriate word. And I believe there's more than just Inuit. I think Inuit is kind of accepted as the wider label for all of the various different groups. But again, much like First Nations, Inuit is not a hard and fast culture. It is a large gathering of different cultures with common aspects. And then Métis often is considered to be a very Eastern Canadian thing, is not an Eastern Canadian thing. Métis was originally, if I understand correctly, when French invaders met Indigenous people and typically women, and they had children together. Those were Métis children, so that's why it's a French word. But Métis people do not have to be French. Métis people are people who are, have parentage that are, one person is white and one person is Indigenous or Inuit or whatever. Anyways, that's your rough answer. Indigenous issues are also very complex. Some communities are prosperous, others much poorer than the Canadian average. Many suffer from critical social issues, including homelessness, crime, domestic violence, and substance abuse and suicide. No, I'm going to guess that we don't question why. Why? I bet we're just going to be like, I don't know, they just, it's an Indigenous thing, probably cultural.
Probably there's something in their culture that says the drugs are good. Many don't have the basic services that we take for granted. Water, such as access. Oh, they actually said that. Such as access to clean drinking water. There are other major issues to address regarding treaty negotiations, housing, property rights on reserves, residential schools, etc. Again, I'm not disagreeing with any of these things. These are all true, and they should be an important part of our ongoing political conversation because of the importance of Indigenous voices to this country. Period. And the importance of the actions that we have taken in the past historically not to support, not to do the things that are necessary to support and help Indigenous communities. We've done the opposite. These are facts. It is not possible to address more than a few of these issues in the context of this election platform. Here's what the PPC would prioritize on the basis of its 4 key principles. Okay, so again, the issue I have no real qualms with. And I feel this is exactly what I said, they're going to do a lot of weak talking points. So, respect. Many injustices were committed in the past by the Canadian government towards Indigenous. Do I have a hat? I feel like, shit, I don't have a hat. Here, I'll use this Safeway bag. I feel like, pretend that this is a hat, and I'm like, many injustices were committed in the past by the Canadian government towards Indigenous peoples, some of which are still ongoing. We cannot rewrite the past, but only seek the best way to live together harmoniously in the future. Don't disagree. This relationship must be based on mutual respect and a balanced approach taking into account the needs of the Indigenous population and the interests of the Canadian population as a whole. Don't disagree. A People's Party government is committed to seeking options to replace the paternalistic Indian Act, which keeps Indigenous peoples in a state of dependency and allows the federal government to control most aspects of their lives with a new legal framework that guarantees equal rights and responsibilities to Indigenous people as Canadians and promotes the self-reliance of communities. I support this, but I don't trust it. Again, this doesn't say anything. It says that the Indian Act is paternalistic, which it is. But we're in a situation right now where the Indian Act has been the law. It has been the way things is for a very long time. Prior to the Indian Act, it was just sort of the residential school program and stuff. Was that the Indian Act too? I don't recall when the Indian Act was passed. But suffice to say, for at least a very long ass time, pardon me, Jesus, I get the hiccups. Let me do this. For at least a long ass time, whether it's the treaty system or the Indian Act or any other legislation that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, these were legal frameworks that were put in place to ostensibly enslave Indigenous people, Inuit people, etc., etc., etc. I agree. But what this doesn't say is how. It just says we're going to do a respect. We're going to make sure that the Indigenous peoples are not in a state of dependency. We're going to promote or guarantee equal rights and responsibilities. Okay, what does that look like? Will we be ensuring that they have a viable means of self-sustainment if they choose to live in reservations? Will we be providing some kind of process by which to strengthen the nations in question? I don't know that we would do that. These are small government people, and I feel like what they would be looking at is, you know what you should do? We'll take the government part out, and then we'll just be like, I don't know, sell oil. I may not be being fair, and I may be wrong, but without any kind of a prescriptive approach to what we will do here, all I see is lip service to our Indigenous brothers and sisters are good people and we have not done right by them, and we want to approach them with honesty and integrity and build a new moral framework for our friendship. And that is awesome, but I want to know what those fucking details are. A People's Party government will respect our Constitution and treaties. It will reaffirm the federal government's power to approve natural resources and infrastructure projects after adequate consultations with affected Indigenous groups and in partnership with them to ensure they can benefit from these economic opportunities. The whitest paragraph in history. Fuck. Here's the thing. And this is an area I know a little bit about. We have a long history of essentially shoving progress down the throats of Indigenous people, whether that is by further stealing their land, not just the initial land grab, but reducing the amount of space that we give them through the treaties that we then said, okay, well, this is how much land you have, but we need this part, so that kind of shit. Also, in terms of things like pipelines going through there, and pipelines are a good example, but pipelines going through their land, and us just being like, it was the one in the States just recently, like a couple of years ago, the pipeline that went through in the Dakotas, if I'm not mistaken. Shit, again, my brain is empty, but the government was just like, yeah, like, we get that this is the land that is your land, but, like, someone's got to have a pipeline. Might as well be you, right? That's a thing. That's a thing. And the funny thing is, the consultation is the most important thing. Adequate consultations with affected Indigenous groups. What does that mean? Again, how do you propose to facilitate these consultations? And are they consultations where you are informing? Are they consultations where you are bringing to the table? Are they consultations where you are listening? Those are very different things, and they all qualify as consultations. The reality is we have need for natural resources. We have need for infrastructure projects that can affect people who, for example, Indigenous groups. That's fine. When we go, hey, we want to come to the table with you, we as honkies don't have a long history of doing that well. We have a really long history of being like, hey, we want to come to the table with you. Here's how shit's going to be. These are facts. This to me is such an empty statement. Again, it feels like they want to communicate about these topics, but they don't want to say anything because they're being the big party, the big tent party. They've got to make sure that libertarians are like, yeah, these people should have the ability to self-govern. And at the same time, they got to make sure that the Christians are like, yeah, you can't just let those scary Injuns all up and all of a sudden they're human beings with like the same rights and freedoms as me, and that's not what Jesus wanted, and they're probably going to murder us in our sleep, because that's how some people think. A surprisingly large number of people. Notice there's nothing here when they talk about Indigenous people. There's nothing here about addressing the things, at least so far, maybe I'm ahead of myself, but addressing the social conditions that are causing those problems that they talked about earlier. Alcoholism, domestic violence, all that kind of stuff. Like, those things tie pretty fucking clearly to an impoverished life that is under attack by a government. That would be a good description of how we have interacted with Indigenous groups in the past. So how are we going to fix that is an important question that so far we haven't seen. Maybe I'm early. Freedom. The lack of real private property on reserves is in part responsible for the poor state of housing and the social ills that derive from it, and is one of the greatest impediments to economic development. A People's Party government will explore further avenues to promote the establishment of individual property rights on reserves so as to empower its residents and give them increased control over their lives. So, I am not an expert on property. I am not an expert on any of this 100%. Here's my 2 cents on the subject. This is really interesting that the whole thing hinges on private property being in part responsible for the poor state of housing and the social ills that derive from it. Okay, how would private property and the lack of private property result in domestic violence? How would the lack of private property result in not having clean drinking water? Or poor economic outcomes, poor educational outcomes? I grant you that home ownership probably, I wouldn't know because I don't own a home, but probably is fucking super poggers. Fine. Is that actually the difference between, you know, like the poor state of housing and social ills that derive from it? Is that the root of the problem, is owning your own home? Like, I don't think so, and I just feel like that's really gross. Maybe I'm wrong. That's my fucking 2 cents on the subject. Fairness. Fairness demands that all Canadians benefit from roughly equivalent services wherever they live. It's unacceptable that some Indigenous communities live in conditions that resemble those of third world countries. But the current model to solve these problems is based on top-down bureaucratic solutions imposed by Ottawa on dependent communities with no voice in the process. A People's Party government will ensure that Indigenous communities take more ownership of the services they receive in partnership with Ottawa and other levels of government. This is a worry to me. The libertarian standpoint is always, and a large amount of conservative viewpoint is always, small government. Why is the government doing the things that result in all of the problems? So when we look at, for example, the access to clean water thing, the government should be solving that problem. The government, because of the sheer cost of dealing with the infrastructure necessary to provide, in some cases, clean water, which could mean things like having a pipeline to bring the water to the space if there's no clean water to be had. It could mean proper water treatment plants. It could mean a lot of different things. And the answer here is, we're going to ensure that Indigenous communities take more ownership of the services they receive. If that means that we want Indigenous people to have a voice in the allocation of funding to do these projects, that's fine. But I don't think that's what it means. Or at the very least, the vibe that I get is that this feels very much like, as we cut these projects, we will encourage you guys to, like, sell oil and use that oil money to make for, we build a sewage plant, water treatment plant. Like, again, maybe I'm being unfair on the fairness section, but I don't think I see anything there that makes me comfortable. The issue of bitching about a top-down bureaucratic solution, I don't disagree in certain conditions, but when we're talking about our current state, we have a paternalistic relationship with Indigenous people. The idea of solving the problems with a top-down approach, meaning the government uses government money to solve the problem, and that's not necessarily the best answer. The best answer is where we come and we agree and we come up with a plan and we implement it, but the reality is that that's being funded by the government. This top-down bureaucratic solution sounds like what they're saying is that there's one of two options. One is for the government to just come in and say, you're getting clean drinking water and this is how it's going to be, versus some other thing. And the thing is, we're not doing any of that. We're not solving this problem. And I really don't feel like the language used here doesn't fill me with a sense of optimism that there's going to be a funding arm that is coinciding with actually doing the work. I don't know, maybe I'm an asshole. I said this section was going to suck because it was going to be a lot of platitudes and not a lot of do-itudes. Responsibility. Although Ottawa spends about $24 billion a year on Indigenous programs, there's little evidence that living conditions have been improving in Indigenous communities. The federal government and Indigenous administrations have a responsibility to ensure that the taxpayers' money is well spent. Okay, no, they don't. That's going to be a bit of a hot take, but no, they fucking don't. What they have a responsibility to do is not spend the taxpayers' money well. They have a responsibility to improve Indigenous communities. And there are absolutely problems that need to get addressed in terms of how that money is utilized. I think there is, historically, there have been plenty of scenarios where the leadership have been very corrupt. Interestingly enough, if I know the stories, which I don't, it has largely been chiefs and council as opposed to hereditary chiefs who have been the shitty actors in this. And chiefs and council is a direct result of the Indian Act, but I digress. Even if that's not the case, we're not talking about a huge sum of money. 24 billion sounds like a lot of fucking money, right? Let's just do a thing. Let's do a thing. How much does Canadian welfare cost not per person, per year? Let's go with that. $720 million. This is an increase in social assistance spending estimates. Okay, that might not be. Oh, this is the 11.2 billion was spent on the Canadian. So okay, let's look at the. Maybe I'm getting part of a thing. Social assistance spending estimates place the monetary value at 700 at the provincial level. So almost $4 billion was transferred to low-income families from the federal government. So this is an example. Now, I'm only going halfway down this particular rabbit hole because I kind of want to smoke. $4 billion was transferred to low-income families from the federal government. Now, cool. This is $24 billion. That's 6 times as much money. That sounds like a significant difference. But let me ask you something. If what we're talking about is $24 billion on Indigenous programs, not on transfers of social assistance and whatever else, because let's remember that $4 billion doesn't include things like our costs of services and all the other shit that we're spending. $24 billion a year probably is not a significantly large number. It's a significantly large number in that I will never see it, but it's probably not like as a total spent on a per capita basis or whatever. It's probably not that unreasonable. And it's interesting to question, like, okay, well, what does the Indigenous programs mean, and what benefit are we getting out of those things? Evidence that living conditions have been improving in Indigenous communities. Okay. I think that's a question of the cart and the horse. Are we arguing that we've spent a bunch of money and they haven't made their lives better, so we should stop paying the money? Are we arguing that we're spending the money poorly and we should continue to spend a large sum of money, but revitalize how we're spending that money? I don't feel like we are. A federal People's Party government will review federal spending to ensure that programs are better targeted to benefit the Indigenous population, in particular the communities that have the greatest needs. Okay. Does that say anything about maintaining spending? Does it say anything about increasing spending? Or does it simply say we're going to target our spending for communities that have the greatest needs? Well, that's, again, super open to interpretation. Now, I'll give an example. One of the communities for Indigenous people that has substantial, huge need here in my hometown or my home province is my hometown. We have a large number of Indigenous people who live here, who live in homelessness and things like that. Are these being considered?
is this get like this isn't going that isn't going to improve Indigenous communities, but it is going to improve Indigenous lives. Like, I just feel like, again, this is like a whole lot of fine sounding words with no direction and nothing tangible to give as examples. And that concerns me greatly, because I'm not willing to extend the benefit of the doubt. Here's the thing. I'm gonna sum this one up, because we could probably do this for hours. Here's the thing. I have no faith in the PPC party because of the big tent problem. I have looked through the website just a little bit today. It has not improved my faith in the PPC party, both because of the big tent philosophy and because of the, I think, need as a result of the big tent philosophy to not really say anything. It's easy when you have a topic that everyone can agree on or that everyone currently agrees on. And I'll give you an example. Conservatives and the convoy. Our topic about, or our conversation about LinkedIn clearly implies conservatives by and large are like, there's a whole lot of nothing on the site. Yeah, 100%. A whole lot of platitudes, a whole lot of, we have great ideas. And you go, what are those ideas? And they're like, see the next page. And you click the next page, like, here's a new set of ideas. It's a bullshit thing. Clearly, conservatives are not 100% behind the convoy. But I get the feeling like the PPC thinks there's enough people who are supporting the convoy, conservatives, neo-libs, that kind of thing. There's enough of a portion there that they can pander to that crowd to try to move themselves forward. Nothing in what I read sounds like what the convoy sounds like. The convoy is a very, very ugly right-wing monster that is not about freedom. It is not about integrating into Canadian society. It is about isolation and violence and tyranny and imposing tyranny, not being the victims of. But they're the ones. They're the ones that are like, you got to extend an olive branch, bro. I guess that was the CPC. That's not a fair thing. But they're the ones that are currying favor, taking their photo ops, you know. Am I wrong? Am I seeing this wrong? I don't feel like I am. All right. I'm going to take another smoke. Then, when I come back, weekly humiliations. I will be singing 2 karaoke songs. Probably, with the way my throat feels, probably not going to go well. We'll find out. All right. I will put on some shitty music, and I'm not going to play that song because that's the one that I wrote for the band. Where the fuck am I? You know what? Let's put on Rob Noor. Is there anything on Rob Noor that's stupid? Or Ribnar, sorry. I wrote a song called Ribnar because I was watching Rob Noor debate. I think this will do just fine. Did I just move thing? No, I didn't. Okay. Well, let's find out. Yeah, this will work. Okay. I'm going to mute the mic and put on the thing on the face. And I am back. I'm always curious, the threat of karaoke, does it scare people away? No, it looks like the same number of people are watching. So, I guess we're going to do some karaoke. After I stop the cheeseball music. There we go. Ah, no hope for the Nate is still here. Okay. That's all I really do this for. It's just for you, Nate. I got to start work in 5 minutes. Okay, well then let's just shut the fuck up and get right to it. Weekly humiliations. Cut over. And that's the wrong tab. And there we go. Okay. Let's start with some bad brains. God, I hope I don't suck at this.
Want me anymore, so I'll just walk out the door. Play the game right from the start. I trust you, you use me, now my heart's all torn apart. So I'm sailing, well I'm sailing on. I'm moving, hey I'm moving on. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. Wow! So the sea I turned up, but there wasn't any luck. That's a fact of life. That's a game's a strife. Everything is all in strife. So I'm sailing, well I'm sailing on. I'm moving, hey I'm moving on. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. Wow!
I'm no Dr. No, apparently. If you're not familiar with bad brains, you need to fix that.
I tell ya, well I'm sailing on. I'm moving, yeah I'm moving on. Sail on, sail on, sail on, sail on. Wow! fucking love Bad Brains. There's too many years, too many tears, until fucking say. And how will we know when there's nowhere to go? And lots of facts for life to show. I don't know the part. But like, oh, I failed the ending. Did not stick the landing. Bad. Oh well. I should really have listened to the whole song. Alright, now we're going to do a different kind of punk rock. Did I switch the view? Yeah, I did. Okay, good. Oh, no initial. Hear ye, friends and Romans, countrymen. Hear ye, punks and skins and journeymen. Hear ye, my sisters and my brethren. The time is coming near. Come ye to soulless corporate circus tops. Come ye to toilet circuit touring stops. Come ye to bedrooms, bars, and bunker squats. The sound is ringing clear. Who'd have thought, fuck, that after all, something as simple as rock and roll would save us all. Now who'd have thought that after all, it was rock and roll. Oh yeah, I love me some Frank Turner. Hear ye, now anybody can take the stage. Hear ye, make miracles for minimum wage. Hear ye, these folk songs for the modern age will hold us in their arms. Right here, right now, Elvis brings his children home. Right here, right now, never have to feel alone. Right here, right now, teenage kicks and gramophones, we hold them in our hearts. Now who'd have thought that after all, something as simple as rock and roll would save us all? Now who'd have thought that after all, it was rock and roll? And I still believe in the Saints. Yeah, and Jerry Lee and Johnny and all the greats. And I still believe in the sound that has the power to raise a temple and tear it down. And I still believe in the need for guitars and drums and desperate poetry. And I still believe that everyone can find a song for every time they've lost and every time they've won. Remember, folks, we're not just saving lives, we're saving souls, we're having fun. I don't think I'm nailing this, but I'm not, like, ruining it, so that's alright. I still believe. Oh, I don't remember this part. That after all, something as simple as rock and roll would save us all. Who'd have thought? After all, something so simple, something so small. Now who'd have thought that after all, it's rock and roll? That was good. I like that. Those are the only things I planned on singing from karaoke perspective. But I want to sing something else. So let's see. Chad, if you want to yell something, yell it quick.
I kind of think of Boston when I think of this song, so let's give this a try. Do you know what I'm about to play?
I have no idea.
All right, well.
Let's see. Randy Newman, Toy Story. I sang that for a project that hasn't been released yet, but shoosh. It's all stuff I've done. Okay, there's new stuff. No. What am I gonna do? I'm also kind of like halfway thinking that I'll eventually see something and be like, oh, that makes me think of something else. Really wants me to sing that We Don't Talk About Bruno song. I don't know. You know, let's do some fucking Alanis Morissette. Hell yeah. This will be the last one. I don't even know if I remember the song at all. We'll find out. I love Alanis Morissette. Oh man, turned 98. You won the lottery and died the next day. It's black fly in your Chardonnay. It's a death row pardon, 2 minutes too late. Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? It's like rain on the wedding day. It's a free ride when you've already paid. It's good advice that you just didn't take. And who would have thought it figures? Just to play it safe, was afraid to fly back to suitcase, kiss the kids goodbye. Waited this whole damn life to take that flight. As the plane crashed down, he thought, well, isn't this nice? Isn't it ironic? It's like rain on the wedding day. It's a free ride when you're already paid. It's good advice that you just didn't take. Who would have thought it figures? Demo Deggy, good to see you. Life is a funny way. Speaking of, I don't know this part. I just think of everything's okay. Everything's going alright. I'm just gonna do it like a cool jazz voice. Life has a funny way of helping you out when you think everything's gone wrong and everything blows up in your face. I literally don't. Traffic jam when you're already late. No smoking sign on your cigarette break. It's like 10,000 spoons when all you need is a knife. It's meeting the man of my dreams and then meeting his beautiful wife. Isn't it ironic? Fuck! Don't you think? A little too ironic. Yeah, I really do think. It's like rain on your wedding day. It's a free ride when you've already paid. It's good advice that you just didn't take. Who would have thought it figures? Life has a funny way to sneak in my phone. I don't know this part. Life has a funny way of helping you out. Helping you out. But that did make me think of one other song. And then we'll call it. Apparently I spelt it karaoke, which is not correct. This song is, I think I may have even done it on stream before. This is the song. If you are a singer-songwriter woman and you are playing in a bar, this song is something that you will perform. Alanis Miles is 10 out of 10. And this song has such a sweet, sleazy groove to it that it's just fucking awesome. And so when you get that like 40-year-old woman singer-songwriter, Mississippi in the middle of a dry spell, Jimmy Rogers on the Victrola up high, Mama's dancing with baby on her shoulder, the sun is setting like molasses in the sky. The boy could sing, knew how to move everything, always wanted more. He'd leave you longing for black velvet and that little boy's smile, black velvet and that slow southern style, a new religion that'll bring you to your knees, black velvet, you please. Up in I'm early. Ha! Psych! Up in Memphis, the musicians like a heat wave, white lightning that's to drive you wild. Mama's babies in the heart of every schoolgirl. Love me tender, leaves him crying in the aisle. The way he moved, it was a sin so sweet and true. Always want more. He'd leave you longing for black velvet and that little boy's smile, black velvet with that slow southern style, a new religion that'll bring you to your knees, black velvet, if you please. Every word of every song, I don't know this part, he sang was for you. In a I literally don't know this song. In a flash, it was gone. It happened so soon. What could you do? Love you, Nate. You take care, my friend. And that little boy's smile, black velvet with that slow southern style, a new religion that'll bring you to your knees, black velvet, if you please, black velvet and that little boy's smile, black velvet with that slow southern style, new religion that'll bring you to your knees, black velvet, if you please, if you please, if you please. All right, I think that's it. That is it. All right. Well, that was a good stream. I feel good about that. I continue to be your all-time favorite small stream Andy. Doing the karaoke's, talking about the convoy, making fun of hogs. We read the PPC party's campaign platform. We mocked it hard because that's all you're going to be able to do. And I talked about right-wing punks and how they're real and they suck. So, what more is there to say? I know a thing. The only thing left to say is